What's up, Blanco ladies? Welcome back to the channel. I'm telling you, you're probably seeing this video after I've gotten my tracheal shave done. I'm probably recovering as you're watching this video. For those unaware, a tracheal shave is basically Adam's apple reduction. I'm going to be slimming it out through plastic surgery in order to get a smoother, more feminine neck, which is what I've been dying to get the past 3 years. However, this is not an opportunity that is accessible to all trans women out there. And so while I still have my Adam's apple, I want to make sure I can explain to you and demonstrate for you on how to hide your Adam's apple. All the tips I'm going to give you are either to fully hide it, to add femininity to that area, or to draw attention away from your neck. So we're gonna get right down into it, but if you do not know anything about me in particular, my name is DIMITRIA SPARROW. I aid trans women, cross-dressers, or anyone who wants to present themselves feminine in giving you the basic knowledge and tips necessary in order to become the Lonco lady I know you are inside. So if you like content like this, be sure to give me a like and subscribe. So firstly, let's start off with the question, is the Adam's apple really a big deal in passing? I get a lot of dysphoria and discomfort with my Adam's apple, which is the reason I'm shaving it down. In terms of passing, however, I'd say yes. But at the same time, I wouldn't sit here and tell you that it's the be-all and end-all of your passing issues. It is a secondary sex characteristic in males, so if you pass all around, if people see an Adam's apple, they're more likely to take a second guess at you, and then their curiosity is sort of flowing. And I would also argue that in your profile, it is a dead giveaway. However, it is not the be-all and end-all of passing. I seem to be able to pass to a number of people. And also keep in mind that a lot of cis women also have a pretty prominent Adam's apple. So in my opinion, I'd say it is a big deal to look after, but it's not the be-all and end-all of passing. And let's also get something out of the way. Does HRT reduce the Adam's apple size? No. While there is a possibility that HRT can increase fat retention in your neck area and it can make the Adam's apple slightly less prominent, do not rely on HRT to take care of this problem. So the first thing you can do is wear a bandana as a face mask. If you're still having to go out in public during COVID and wear a mask, wearing a bandana that goes all the way down through your neck is an excellent, easy way to conceal your Adam's apple when you don't want anybody to see it. Wearing a mask already lets you walk around with an unshaved face when you really don't care, and a bandana will furthermore conceal your neck area. And this is one you've probably heard before, putting on a scarf. Even if you don't have a prominent Adam's apple, putting on a scarf actually adds a lot of life to your outfit and it adds some color to your face. Along with jewelry in your purse, a scarf can very much complete and accentuate an outfit. Here's the issue though. It seems that there is a pattern in terms of making attempts to pass. Sometimes you might put on too much makeup to feminize your face when really it makes you stick out like a sore thumb and it ends up clocking you. This can possibly be the same thing for wearing a scarf in a warmer climate. The idea behind cross-dressing or presenting feminine when you're trans, it seems you want to blend in while standing out at the same time. When you wear a scarf in warmer weather, it's so clear that you're hiding something. What you could do is go for like a heavy wool scarf in the winter and then switch possibly to a silk or chiffon scarf in slightly warmer weather, like say when spring comes up, that's when you do it. Basically wear when it's appropriate for the weather. And since fall is coming up, it's getting cold really, really quickly. So this is the perfect time to hide your Adam's apple with a scarf. It's very basic and it's one of the first options that trans women go to. Along with this, you could be wearing a high collar top. You could be going with a shirt or a jacket. Turtlenecks seem to work really well with this because they tend to be thicker and they hide that area. I find with high collar tops, sometimes the fabric is too thin and your Adam's apple protrudes the fabric. It's like a tight fitting part at your neck, but since your Adam's apple pushes it out, it doesn't really help in making you unclockable. Turtlenecks are a thicker, better option, but again, you don't really catch people wearing a turtleneck in a very warm climate. However, sometimes a shirt does really work. I'd say ruffled collars or that sort of lettuce trim can hide that area, but also add some softness and some femininity to that area. And when we're talking about coats, it seems that parka coats are really, really cool because they usually have a full fur protruding outwards. And this is one thing you can do in making your Adam's apple less prominent is if you're putting a garment in front of it that is very full. And with parka coats, when they're very luscious fur, they're very feminine. Think about those nice pink fur coats. When you're putting that in front of that sort of more masculine area, it draws attention away from it. On the other hand, what you could do is lower your neckline down. So this is the idea of drawing attention away from that area of your neck. You could be wearing tops or dresses that have a lower neckline, like a V-neck, plunging neckline, a halter, or a portrait. These are all really excellent for this. On top of that, you could be adding on a pendant necklace to draw the eye down very simply. So my experience with transitioning and what works in presenting that makes me look good, sometimes when I wear tops that cover this whole area all the way up to here, sometimes it can actually masculinize you. When we think of femininity, especially outfits that are feminine, we think of stuff that shows off your collarbone, stuff that shows off a long neck, shows off cleavage, possibly the most female thing. Another neckline is an asymmetrical one. So one that sort of goes down here. It can cover one shoulder, but it reveals one shoulder. These are all really feminine edges that can take away from the idea of people looking at you and immediately looking at your Adam's apple when you're emphasizing very feminine and soft features about you, like your collarbone or a bare shoulder. And if you got a flat chest, throw on a cleavage creator. Create some cleavage to where people are going to be looking right at your boobs. This could be attention you want, it could be attention you do want. Another tip you've probably heard is choosing a hairstyle in a very wise manner. Long hair with some soft waves can cover the area in layers. What I also tend to find is, this is basically a trans girl tip in the long run. I find be very careful with very straight hair. Sometimes straight hair can make you look like a Barbie doll, but at the same time, sometimes I find a lot harder to get very straightened hair and add some volume to it. And when straight lines go to this area, I find it doesn't do that much to feminize this area. This is why I've kind of been going with, I call it the brave look, even though it's probably not too much. It's just a very wavy sort of thing. I've been using a 3-barrel curler. What I tend to find is it's a lot easier to get volume with this, and soft curls I find add a ton of femininity right away. So my initial goal, if we're talking about making the Adam's apple less prominent, is when I'm adding softness to this area, it can help make that area less sort of angular. So that's a possible thing you can go for. The problem is it might be better to work on your hairstyle rather than waiting for long hair to sort of do this. It seems to just fall right below the Adam's apple. And if I turn to my profile, it just looks like it's right below where I'd want it to be. If it did this, it would be really nice, but it doesn't seem to do that. All in all, the worst possible hairstyle you can have as a trans woman is probably a bob that ends right here. It could be emphasizing a jawline that you're not as big a fan of, and it's leaving your neck fully bare, and it's a nice harsh line that can emphasize your Adam's apple. Something you've probably heard of that is pretty much a trans girl meme at this point is swallowing when taking pictures. So for those who are not aware, who are new to sort of the scene, if I were to take my phone and I'm gonna take a selfie, right before I press click, I'm sort of going like this. Whenever you swallow or you kind of talk really high like this, it goes a little higher, and when you go down like this, you can sort of control where your Adam's apple is going. You kind of have to do this, you have to kind of replicate what your throat does when you're drinking some water. So this is something that can take a little bit of practice to really perfect. But on top of taking pictures, what it can also do is it can help you go through a crowd of people really quickly without having to show off your Adam's apple. Basically, in order to show your Adam's apple who's boss, you gotta learn how to control this thing. Another tip I could possibly give you, a product that might help you, is a breastplate. So you have to be sort of the particular demographic in order to pick this out. Trans women don't really opt for breastplates as they're a little more on the costumey side. Basically, they're silicone breast forms that basically encompass possibly some of the waist. It recreates a nice smooth collarbone, and some of them create a prosthetic, smooth, feminine neck that goes all the way up to here. The reason I'd want to include this is if you're trying to make yourself unclockable, this is not gonna work because it's very clear you got a fake neck and it's ending right here. But if you want to get the feeling and assurance that just for today, when I'm wearing this, that I'm different, that I am someone else, it helps you get in the feeling that you're in a body that you want. And another thing you can do is use makeup contour. Speaking of which, in artificial light, makeup looks so much different. I always look like I have a brown forehead, and I don't know if my foundation looks patchy here. For some reason, it always looks darker on camera. So I'm going to show you how to contour your Adam's apple to make it less noticeable, and I've got a patchy neck to show you. But basically the idea behind this is if you're beginning into makeup, you start to notice that stuff that is a light shade brings things forward and emphasizes it, whereas darker shades, like stuff with contours, set stuff back and make it less noticeable. So that's sort of the idea behind the Adam's apple. When you see my Adam's apple, it's clearly like a bright kind of shade. It's highlighted because it's physically protruding, and so light is feeding off of it. And so the area here is not being fed as much light, and you see a slight shadow. So the idea is we're manipulating the shadow and what is actually being highlighted and pushed forward. So I'm going to switch over to another clip, and I'm going to go through the process on how I would contour my Adam's apple if I wasn't getting my tracheal shave done. Okay, let me get one thing perfectly clear. This method does not work, and I'll explain a little bit later. But you just saw I was using a white, actually brow pomade to highlight because I didn't think my brightening concealer was quite enough. So I actually found highlighting below it, bringing the shadow of the Adam's apple forward, seemed to really help. But whatever you do, please do not use a brow pomade with regular brushes. Use it with strong synthetic bristles, or else you're gonna ruin your brushes. It's just too thick. Natural bristles can't handle it. So here I'm using a brightening concealer to make a gradient out of the pure white. All these brushes that I was using for the white, I ruined all three of them, and I'm ashamed to say it. Just be careful what brush you're using for pomades. So now I'm adding the contour I just held up. So I use just a little bit, just the faintest amount on the bump, basically. Because I find when you add too much, it looks way too obvious. It just muds you out like crazy. This I've never really done before, and I did my best. It took me hours just to get this going. So I'm just kind of applying over and over and over again. And so right now, this is possibly the best I came up with. Well, actually, what I could have done is used setting powder to get rid of the shine on the white pomade, but it's okay, I would say, but this is why it's not a good idea. This is what happens when you contour your Adam's apple. Whenever you talk, the shadow changes. Like, whenever you talk, the cartilage, like sort of bone structure, is gonna move around. Whenever you turn, you're basically gonna be seeing a different angle. Like, the light is gonna reflect differently because your neck changes, kind of shape when you do it. But this is the before and after of the Adam's apple. So I think possibly I was able to do it, but it's kind of a fail. I don't think it's gonna work for you in everyday life because the amount of times you move your neck in Adam's apple, I don't think this is gonna work for you. And secondly, this won't work for photos either because you could basically just swallow and take a picture and you'll get a better result. You won't have to worry about getting the wrong contour shade or blending it in properly. Just swallow, take the picture, done. That's it. So there you go. That is how I would do it. This is possibly a technique you'd want to pair up with something else. As great as makeup is and the amount of stuff you can manipulate and change and give the illusion that your bone structure is different, all of that is pretty much ruined when you turn like this because makeup doesn't really solve full-on bone structure. Right when you turn over, your Adam's apple is back. And another thing you can do is use collars or chokers. So the deal is I always found that collars were cool. I like wearing them, but they tend to be a little uncomfortable and don't fit you properly if you have a prominent Adam's apple. The issue is, I demonstrated this in my tracheal shave video. Sometimes it's almost like my collar, when I put it on, it either had to fit here or right here. Because if it goes dead center, your Adam's apple is constantly pushing at it and it gets uncomfortable over time. And the only place it can settle is either up or down because that's where a smooth, fully round neck part is. So collars aren't as good as I'd like to. What I would opt for are chokers that are soft, a little more elastic, and can kind of wrap around here without a lot of discomfort. If you're looking to hide your Adam's apple with a choker, the best thing to do is obviously get something a little larger. But the issue is, unless you're like a goth girl, it kind of makes you stand out. And unless you're like out for Halloween or you're in the fetish crowd, it makes you stick out because nobody really wears stuff like that anymore. So if you are looking to hide it, I'd go with something a little larger. But on the other hand, this is what I was getting at when you want to sort of add a feminine edge to that area. Very thin chokers, I would actually recommend, depending on who you are. Chokers typically are very feminine looking. Though they are, a very queer symbol, it is noted for its femininity. And this is the reason why the tattooed choker, which is this guy right here, you've definitely seen it before, is actually a favorite among trans girls. The deal is it's kind of like 90s nostalgia coming back, but it's also just an icon of femininity. Will it hide your Adam's apple? No. It's like a fishnetty choker, but it immediately feminizes that area and it's gorgeous. Other alternatives are rhinestone or velvet. These are really, really cute. Black strap chokers I would recommend as well. Plus they give sort of a vintage vibe. And then again, if you want a sort of more theatrical look, any lace choker is really, really cute and they tend to be very frilly and very feminine. So what's great is you can just add femininity to that area to where people are not going to be looking at that area and noticing your Adam's apple. They're just going to see this very feminine garment that is on that area, and that's what they're going to take from it. One of the last ones I will give you, this one I was doing extra research on, and one of them was suggesting to gain some weight. Just why? The idea is the skinnier you are, the more chiseled and angular the Adam's apple is going to be, whereas if you've put some weight on, that more fat comes on this area and makes the Adam's apple less prominent. Sure, that is true, but I don't know who in their right mind would gain weight for the simple possibility that it'll make the Adam's apple less prominent. I'd rather be slim and petite with a big honking Adam's apple that I could possibly hide. I just don't understand that. Okay, and last tip I would give you is to get a tracheal shave done. Obviously, this is the ideal. This permanently reduces the Adam's apple. What the tracheal shave actually is you're reducing the laryngeal prominence, as in the Adam's apple, which is located at the top of the thyroid gland in the middle of the throat. So you're not removing the Adam's apple, you're shaving it down. What you're shaving down is literally the thyroid cartilage, that is your Adam's apple, you're shaving down that thyroid cartilage in front of the larynx. Now, thyroid cartilage is prominent in men and women, its main goal being to protect the vocal cords from any damage. So that is a myth you can get over, that only men have Adam's apples. Men and women do. However, in males during puberty, hormones like testosterone enlarge this area while deepening the voice and enlarging the voice box. This is the ideal. It is permanent, but then again, it is more on the expensive side. And again, I did a whole video on what to expect during getting a tracheal shave, all of the pre, during, and after care instructions. So make sure to check that video right there. Okay, so we're gonna go through just some options that I will give you in terms of clothes to pick out. I'm gonna go through some of these with you right now. So this is just a basic turtleneck that is really form-fitting, really cute. It adds some thickness to that area. So that is one to choose. So this next one is just a slimming high collar top. It's just a high collar top that can hide that area nice and seamlessly. And this is an example I would go with in terms of adding some frill and femininity while also having a high collared top. This is basically the same sort of top as the other one, except it has some lettuce trims. So you could be hiding it while also adding some frill, some softness and femininity to that area. And this is just a parka coat that I took a look at that was very cute. I'm really hyper focused on this pink one. I kind of really want to get it for the weather that's coming up. And again, this is just an example of when a coat has something in front of it that it's going to distract away from the area of your Adam's apple. Also, I have links down below for heavy winter scarves for the fall and winter coming up, as well as for lightweight scarves made of silk and chiffon that will give you a hand in hiding your Adam's apple in the slightly warmer climates that won't sort of heat you up like crazy and won't make you stick out like a sore thumb. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully that gives you all of the tips and tricks that you need to know on how to hide, take away from, or add some femininity to your Adam's apple area. So give me a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let me know if it gave you a hand. If you have any other ways on how you have personally hid your Adam's apple and your transition journey, I'd love to hear. Stay beautiful, everyone. Take care.